Howdy, we are Group 5 and our topic is childhood obesity in the Bryan-College Station area. Our ultimate goal was to study if there was an issue of childhood obesity in this area and what possible patterns could be connecting it if so. Our SMART objective we chose was to reduce the proportion of male and female children and adolescents ages 3 to 11 who are considered obese by 5% by the end of 2020. We will cover risks, our data collection plan, show a comparison of secondary data, and discuss possible interventions. We begin by studying the obesity statistics overall in the United States. In looking at statistics, we look at body mass index, which is a tool for measuring overweight and obesity. BMI is measured for children because they are still growing. According to the CDC, children with a BMI above the 95th percentile are considered obese. That being said, it is stated that about 1 in 5 school-age children currently has obesity in America. In the years 2011 to 2014, the prevalence of obesity is said to affect about 12.7 million children and adolescents. Obesity is seen more in Hispanic and non-Hispanic Black youth, while non-Hispanic white is 14.7% and non-Hispanic Asian youth is 8.6%. In summary, according to the NCHS data brief, the prevalence of childhood obesity was higher than the Healthy People 2020 goal of 14.5, but the prevalence in children ages 2 to 5 was below the goal of 9.4. We next looked at the data collected in childhood obesity in the Bryan-College Station area. Although it was harder to find rates on childhood obesity in this area than it was to find information for the United States as a whole. In College Station alone, the estimated population for this area, according to the census in 2016, was 112,141 people. Ages under 5 accounted for 4.8%, and ages under 18 accounted for 14.8%. In both Bryan and College Station, the population is said to be 250,145 people. While we were unable to find specific data statistics on the obesity in our target area, the percent in ages 2 to 4 in the state of Texas is 14.9%. Overall, our thought prior to collecting data ourselves and doing any more research was that there was most likely a small portion of childhood obesity in the Bryan-College Station area.
As referenced in the previous slides, the statistics regarding childhood obesity are astounding and continue to grow every year. Because of the prevalence of childhood obesity, it is important for us to analyze the health problem and determine the various factors that can influence the issue in order to understand and therefore effectively tackle the problem. The Precede-Proceed model, seen here, is a tool used by health educators to assess various societal factors that influence the specific health problem being targeted. Along with analyzing influences, the model describes the long-term outcomes that can result from the health issue being discussed. With childhood obesity being the focus of our model, it is easy to assume that this pressing health issue is one where parents and technology are to blame, but it is evident through the model that this is definitely not the case. For one, there are multiple uncontrollable factors that impact the development of obesity in a child. Some of these are genetic factors, as seen in the slide in yellow, like predisposition to obesity, a child's own physiology, like the rate of their metabolism, and plenty more as noted in the model on the screen. Others, however, can be directly correlated with the socioeconomic status of the child's parents, which indirectly affects them through environmental factors like limited access to playgrounds, unsafe neighborhoods, and an increased fast food intake, which all influence weight directly through a decreased amount of physical activity and high fat and caloric intake in foods. It is important to note that childhood obesity is a serious issue that can have lasting chronic effects on a child. As we have outlined in our model in red, issues that can later attribute to cardiovascular disease and physical impairments are some of the many problems that can arise from obesity at a young age. With these added health issues then come quality of life consequences that have the power to affect every aspect of an individual's life, from education and career choices to social and emotional health.
For our primary data, we chose to do a survey and interviews. We sent out the survey to an Aggie Moms organization. This organization was a good fit for our data because we found that there were many barriers to getting primary data for our topic. The organization volunteered to help our class gather data so we didn't have to worry about parental consent, and many of the moms had kids that were within the age group we were focusing on. We plan to do interviews as well of a handful of parents that we knew personally. We were unable to do so due to schedule restraints and lack of time. We also concluded that the amount of people we were planning on interviewing was very small and would give us insufficient results. We selected survey questions based on the main determinants of childhood obesity we found in our research. Determinants included ethnicity, level of education, physical activity, height, and weight to calculate the BMI, and diet. There are many dimensions to what leads childhood obesity, and we wanted to make sure we included all components in our survey to obtain the most accurate results.
The survey that was put out to the moms group at Texas A&M had 6 questions. It had 9 responses, and of those 9 responses, only 8 reported on their child's weight. Only 5 reported on their child's height. The BMI was then calculated of those who responded, and it was found that none of the children were overweight in the sample that we were able to collect. Our sample was small, which was a limitation, so it's not a great representation of the whole Bryan-College Station area. However, we were able to compare the healthy BMI of the children with their physical activity and eating habits. When asked how many days in each week their child eats fast food, 89% of the respondents said that their child only eats fast food 0 to 1 times a week. When asked how many days of the week their child was getting at least 60 minutes of exercise a day, 78% said that their child is active 6 to 7 days out of the week. Based off the responses, it can be inferred that a healthy BMI is the result of a healthy diet and frequent physical activity. However, a larger sample size would validate our results even more. We can further validate our findings by using secondary data we found on childhood obesity by comparing it to our raw data, like physical activity and nutrition. If we had a larger sample size, we would be able to compare the Bryan-College Station area to statistics on childhood obesity for the whole U.S. in order to study the trends and relationships. However, our sample size was small, and our respondents reported healthy BMIs. BMI is your weight in kilograms over your height squared in centimeters. For instance, the BMI of a person who's 5'3" and weighs 125 pounds is calculated like this. First, you multiply the weight in pounds by 0.45, which is the metric conversion factor. The answer is right there. Next, you can multiply the height in inches by 0.025, which is also the metric conversion factor. And then we got this. Next, you'll want to square the answer from step 2. So we squared 1.575, and we got this, 2.48. The next thing you'll do, and the last thing, is divide the answer you got from step 1 by the answer from step 3. So 56.25 divided by 2.4, and that got us 22.7, which is approximately 23. Another super simple way to look up BMI is by looking up a calculator on the internet. We found this one, and we typed in 130 pounds, and we put our height at 5'3", and we got a normal BMI at 23.
There are several potential risks that have been proven to accompany childhood obesity. In other words, children with a BMI in the 95th percentile are at risk of developing several negative health consequences later in life. The list of potential health issues includes high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes, asthma, and low quality of life. For heart disease, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol, obese children are more likely to have high blood pressure and cholesterol, which are both risk factors for heart disease. According to one study, 70% of children who are obese have at least one cardiovascular disease risk factor, and 39% have 2 or more cardiovascular disease risk factors. Additionally, childhood obesity is an important modifiable risk factor for diabetes. Type 2 diabetes results from severe insulin resistance, reduced beta cell sensitivity, or reduced insulin secretion, all of which result from genetic predispositions and a high amount of fat surrounding internal organs such as the liver and muscles. Diabetes has become an increasingly prevalent negative health outcome and risk factor. For example, until about 10 years ago, less than 3% of all new cases of diabetes were type 2. This number is now up to 45%. Asthma is another important risk factor that is modifiable with weight. According to one study, obese children are 2.73% more likely to visit the emergency room and 2.56% more likely to be hospitalized due to asthma than children of normal weight. Asthma is also an important predictor of quality of life. Speaking of quality of life, low quality of life is an important risk associated with childhood obesity. According to one study, these children have been proven to show significantly lower social and physical functioning on the pediatric quality of life score. There are many more risk factors that can result from childhood obesity. However, I have only listed the most notable and impactful. Now the question is, how do we prevent childhood obesity from negatively impacting the lives of children? We have laid out a list of potential solutions to prevent and reduce the prevalence of obesity in children. These solutions include a change in diet, an increase in exercise for able-bodied children, perhaps hiring a personal trainer or nutritionist, and even certain medications that can perhaps decrease body fat.
To wrap everything up, childhood obesity within children ages 3 to 11 in the Bryan-College Station area is impacted by various factors, some being controllable and some being non-controllable. An example of non-controllable factors is genetics, family culture, and socioeconomic status, while examples of controllable factors are diet, knowledge, and environment. These controllable factors are what we need to focus on as a community in order to promote change within our youth. In addition to some of these predisposing factors, there are also reinforcing and enabling factors that encourage the unhealthy behaviors that lead to childhood obesity. Some examples of these are the parents' diet, the media, and the resources and societal support put in place to facilitate the behavior. All of these factors come together to holistically impact health and quality of life for these children. Childhood obesity also places children at higher risks of developing heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, and premature death. The presence of these chronic disorders can lead to depression and anxiety, and these children are at higher risks of having low self-esteem, impaired physical functioning, and poor performance in school. Our results showed that children who did not eat fast food frequently, exercise for at least 60 minutes a day, and refrain from eating away from the home showed the healthiest BMI levels. In order to decrease childhood obesity in the Bryan-College Station area, we should join forces as a community and promote a change in diet, an increase in exercise, and an increase in overall community awareness and knowledge in order to give these children the best chance of living a long and healthy life. Some limitations to our study may have occurred with our data collection methods. We chose to gather primary information through a survey where mothers volunteered their time to be a part of this study. The small number of volunteers produced a small sample size that is not necessarily representative of the entire Bryan-College Station population. Also, surveys may produce biased or dishonest responses, and individuals may struggle with the wording of some questions, which can lead to confusion that skews results. Lastly, the subjects of this study were children aged 3 to 11, so parental consent was necessary in order to obtain data, which limited what we were able to collect. Also, these children and even the parents may have lacked the knowledge or understanding about obesity at such a young age, which leads us back to our solution of promoting community awareness.